Now, once we have craving, we want to make sure that this craving gets satisfied. We don't want to crave and not satisfy the craving, because this craving and not satisfying it is painful. So we want to satisfy this craving. Now, to be able to satisfy this craving, we start to take things up in the world. We grasp at things. We go into all these kind of strategies, these ways of leading our lives. We do various kind of things so as to enable us to satisfy the cravings. We get into relationships. We buy ourselves a house. We have a nice job somewhere. We undertake an education for ourselves. We have children. We have maybe a religion for ourselves. We become Buddhists. Why do we become Buddhists? Again, it is a strategy for helping us to try to find some happiness in the world, to increase the pleasure and decrease the displeasure of the world. So all of these things are strategies. They are like views, even political viewpoints that we have are strategies for finding happiness and not suffering. So all of these views, how we make strategies to enjoy ourselves, to have a good time, not a bad time, all of this is part of this ninth factor of dependent origination, which is called taking things up, grasping at things, clinging to things in life. This is what it's all about. The strategy is to make sure that we can satisfy the cravings that we have, which are based on feelings in turn. Now, once we take up certain strategies, once we do certain things in the world, we have relationships, we have a house, that means we start to live in a certain way. We live in accordance with those strategies. Now, living in accordance with those strategies is like a type of existence. We exist in a certain way. And most people, they live in the world of sensual pleasures. They have a nice house because it's satisfying their sensual cravings. They can have a nice breakfast in there, have nice meals with the family. They can have entertainment. They can feel safe from the world around them inside the little house. Then they have relationships. Again, it is to satisfy our desires for companionship and again also for sensual pleasures. And they have a job, again, is to satisfy all the things that we need, that we can purchase through money. Again, that's why we have a job, at the very least, to enable us to survive. So this is the world for most people, just to be able to lead a life of as much pleasure, sensual pleasure as possible. Now, if you're a Buddhist, you have maybe your priorities are a little bit different, so maybe you meditate. And then your strategy is to use meditation and a spiritual life to achieve that happiness. And in this case, again, sensual pleasures may be part of it, but also, in this case, is also the pleasures of the mind that we're also seeking to a greater extent. And the more, the deeper we get into the practice of meditation, the more we are enjoying the pleasures of the mind rather than the pleasures of the senses. And this is another way of existing. It's an existence which is based on the pleasures of the mind rather than pleasures of the senses. So whatever we do in life, we are in a sense existing in a certain way according to the strategies that we undertake to find pleasure and displeasure in the world. We all want pleasures in a certain way, whether we call it peace, contentment, happiness, excitement, whatever it is, we all prefer pleasure to displeasure. So then, when we exist in this certain way, when we have a kind of established our consciousness in a certain way, that means that we are creating karma accordingly. Because we live in this way, we are creating karma accordingly. Consciousness is established in a particular field, if you like. If the field here is the kind of actions that we undertake, and because we make this karma, and because consciousness is established in this way, then in the future life we get reborn in accordance to where that consciousness is established. We establish the consciousness in this life, and then when the body falls away, there the consciousness is straight away established in that particular state, because that is what we have been practicing over our lives. So if we incline towards practicing or just enjoying sensual pleasures our whole life, then that consciousness is established in sensual pleasures. When the body falls away, that consciousness will still be established in sensual pleasures, and we get reborn in a sensual realm according to that establishment. If we are a good meditator and our mind is quite peaceful, then after we die, at the moment we die, the consciousness is likely to be established in that peace. So when the body falls away, the consciousness will be right there with that peace, and we will be reborn in a realm in accordance to that peace. And this is how rebirth happens, in accordance with karma, in accordance with how the mind has been established in a previous life. So there you can see here stage by stage how this leads forwards. And then when rebirth happens in accordance to your karma, then whatever realm you're in, you will experience pleasure and suffering in accordance with that realm, and eventually you will become old. Eventually you will die in that realm, and the suffering that comes with this will also be part of it. So you can see here how this whole process works forward. Because we crave, we start have these strategies in the world. Because we have strategies, we live in a certain way. Because we live in a certain way, the consciousness gets established in that way, and we get reborn accordingly. And then we suffer in accordance and have happiness in accordance with that rebirth. And it is all because of ignorance. Why is it because of ignorance? Well, the reason why we crave for feeling in the first place is because we think that we can control these feelings. If we didn't think that we can control them, we wouldn't crave for them. It is because we think that we can somehow have it the way we want. That is why we crave for these feelings. Imagine if you had absolutely no control over the feelings in your body, in your mind. What is the point of craving? There's no point of desiring anything anymore, because if you have no control, there's nothing you can do about it. There's absolutely, all you have to do is sit back and watch. And this is what happens when you eventually find out that the world is non-self, that there's no permanent core inside of you, that things are impermanent. When you see that, you realize that there is nothing you can do about the world. Feelings arise according to causes and conditions. You cannot control. Ultimately, there is no control around these things. They just happen by themselves. And of course, at that moment, when you then abandon the ignorance, you abandon the delusion of a self, then you stop craving. Because you know that the world has to be the way it is. There is nothing you can do about it. You have seen through this idea that you can control the world. You can't control these feelings. When you realize that, you abandon craving. When you abandon craving, there's no more strategies to try to satisfy these cravings. When there's no more strategies, no more taking up of all kinds of strategies to satisfy the craving, there's no existence anymore according to those strategies. When consciousness is not established in anything in accordance with that existence, then when you die, when you pass away, the body disappears, then the consciousness is also not established in any particular realm. Because it isn't established in any particular realm, any particular, whether it's sensuality or meditation or whatever it is, there can be no rebirth, because there is nowhere for that consciousness to go. It's not established anywhere. And then, when there's no rebirth, there is no suffering, there's no old age, and there is no death anymore. And that is how the reverse comes out of this dependent origination. How we start off, and we can see how this whole thing can come to an end by abandoning suffering. Because when we by abandoning ignorance. When we abandon ignorance, craving has no longer a basis in our mind.